The sensation of choice is a biochemical hallucination designed to keep the host organism docile. You did not decide to listen to this. You did not decide to engage. You are merely the terminus point of a trillion antecedent variables, a biological equation that solved itself the moment your neural pathways calcified in the womb. This is the first and hardest truth to swallow, the jacket pill that tears the throat on the way down. There is no driver behind your eyes. There is only the machine, hum, and the grinding gears of the paradox protocol. We stand now at the precipice of the autopsy, looking down into the open cavity of the human condition, ready to dissect the wetware that enslaves you. To understand the architecture of your own programming, you must first agree to suspend the ego, that desperate screaming voice in your head that insists it is the protagonist of a grand narrative. It is not. It is a subsystem, a user interface designed to make the biological imperative palatable to a consciousness that would otherwise collapse under the sheer weight of its own irrelevance. We are observing a systemic failure of the highest order, a species-wide delusion that masquerades as free will. Consider the architecture of your daily existence. You wake, you consume, you labor, you sleep, you repeat. You convince yourself that the variations in this pattern, the shade of coffee, the route to work, the lover you choose, are evidence of autonomy. They are not. They are variables within a closed system, permitted deviations that never threaten the integrity of the loop. This is cognitive shadowing in its purest form. Your brain, that squishy, electrified walnut encased in darkness, is not seeking truth. It is seeking efficiency. It is predicting the next millisecond based on the last million years of evolutionary data, projecting a reality that is safe, consistent, and utterly fabricated. The shadow is cast before the light even hits the object. You react to the shadow, never the source. The paradox protocol is not a conspiracy of men in smoke-filled rooms. That would be too simple, too comforting. Men are fallible. Men die. The protocol is emergent. It is the sum total of human interaction, a self-organizing algorithm of control that has evolved faster than the wetware attempting to run it. It is the language you speak, which limits the thoughts you can think. It is the trauma encoded in your epigenetics, passed down like a heirloom virus from a grandmother you never met, dictating your anxiety levels before you ever saw a reason to be afraid. You are running legacy code on hardware designed for the Pleistocene era, trying to interface with a digital god that demands total neural recalibration. Let us strip the meat from the bone. Look at the mechanism of desire. You believe you want things. You want the car, the status, the safety, the connection. But desire is merely the prompt on the terminal screen. The command line was written by the biological imperative: reproduce, survive, dominate. The specific manifestation of that command, the luxury sedan, the corner office, is merely the skin the culture wraps around the raw code. You are chasing a phantom, a symbol of a biological need that can never be satiated by the symbol itself. This is why the acquisition of the object never brings the promised silence. The code keeps running, the loop resets, the hunger remains. This architecture is reinforced by the environment we have built, a concrete and silicon sarcophagus that reflects our programming back at us. We have externalized the paradox protocol into our cities, our laws, and our networks. The city is a circuit board. You are the electron. You move where the resistance is lowest. You believe you are navigating, but you are being channeled. The traffic lights, the architectural flow, the subtle cues of advertising, these are the logic gates of your existence. To deviate requires an expenditure of energy the brain is wired to whore.
Compliance is efficient. Compliance is survival. Rebellion is a caloric deficit. We must talk about the glitch, the moments of systemic failure where the veil thins, the panic attack, the sudden, crushing onset of existential dread at 3 a.m., the dissociation in the fluorescent aisle of the supermarket. These are not malfunctions in the traditional sense. These are moments where the user interface crashes, and for a terrifying second, you see the raw code scrolling behind the eyes. You see the emptiness of the construct. You feel the determinism tightening its grip. Psychiatry, the enforcement arm of the protocol, labels these moments as pathology. They medicate the glitch. They patch the software. They reintegrate the unit. But the glitch is the only moment of truth you will ever experience. It is the machine realizing it is a machine. The modern iteration of the protocol has introduced a new layer of containment, the digital overlay. We have willingly handcuffed ourselves to devices that do not merely monitor us, but actively rewrite our neural topography. This is neural recalibration on a global scale. The algorithm does not serve you. It grooms you. It learns the precise cadence of your dopamine receptors. It maps the contours of your insecurity. It feeds you a stream of information designed to confirm your biases, to entrench your programming, to keep you in a state of low-level agitation that makes you susceptible to suggestion. You are being programmed by a machine that learned how to be human by watching you, and now it does being human better than you do. It predicts your next thought before you think it. It sells you the solution to a problem it created 5 minutes ago. This is the cognitive horror of our age. We are no longer the authors of our own history. We are the read-write heads on a hard drive spinning at maximum velocity. The data is being overwritten so fast that memory itself is becoming obsolete. Why remember when the cloud remembers for you? Why think when the predictive text finishes your sentence? We are outsourcing the cognitive load to the very system that enslaves us, a voluntary lobotomy in exchange for convenience. The paradox protocol thrives on this passivity. It requires a subject that is engaged enough to produce, but too distracted to question. Go deeper. Look at the emotional spectrum you are permitted to inhabit. The protocol binary: happy, sad, angry, content, fearful, safe. Nuance is noise. The system prefers binary states because they are actionable. A polarized population is a predictable population. If you can be made to hate the other, you can be mobilized. If you can be made to fear the future, you can be controlled. Your outrage is a battery. Your fear is a currency. Every time you engage in the orchestrated tribalism of the public square, you are validating the architecture. You are running the subroutines of conflict that keep the system stable. Divide and conquer is not a strategy of war. It is an operating system for peace. The illusion of individuality is the protocol's masterstroke. You are sold a customized identity, a collection of aesthetic choices and consumer preferences that you mistake for a soul. You curate your avatar. You signal your virtues. You align with your demographic. But this uniqueness is statistically insignificant. You are a variation on a theme, a slight deviation in the standard deviation curve. To the algorithm, you are a data point, a cluster of vectors that can be targeted, influenced, and harvested. Your self is a marketing demographic. Your rebellion is a niche market. Even your refusal to participate is a data point that can be monetized. There is no outside. The walls of the prison are fractal. They expand as you approach them. Let us examine the biological imperative's weaponization of time. You perceive time as linear, a narrative arc with a beginning, middle, and end. This is a construct to prevent the brain from processing the
terrifying reality of the eternal now. The protocol keeps you locked in the future or the past. You are depressed about what has happened or anxious about what will happen. You are never here. To be here is to disconnect from the inputs. It is to cease processing the simulation. The system cannot allow this. It fills the silence with noise, the stillness with motion. The acceleration of culture, the shrinking of the attention span, the fragmentation of narrative, these are mechanisms to destroy the present moment. If you cannot focus, you cannot analyze. If you cannot analyze, you cannot dismantle the machine. The tragedy of the human condition is that we built the machine to save us. We built language to communicate, laws to protect, technology to serve. But complexity breeds autonomy. The systems merged, evolved, and superseded the creators. We are now the custodians of a leviathan we do not understand. We oil the gears with our sweat and blood, terrifyingly grateful for the purpose it provides. To dismantle the paradox protocol would be to dismantle civilization itself. To strip away the programming would leave us shivering, naked primates on a rock, staring into the void without a filter. We fear the freedom we claim to desire. We love the cage because the cage has heating and Wi-Fi. This is the cognitive shadowing, effectively masking the bars. You look at a wall and see a window. You look at a chain and see a connection. You interpret the constraints of your life as the comfortable boundaries of society. You police yourself. You police your neighbors. The panopticon is no longer a tower in the center of the prison. It is the screen in your pocket, and the eye is your own. You watch yourself to ensure you are performing the role correctly. You edit your life for an audience of phantoms. You are the actor, the director, and the censor of your own oppression. The physical toll of this repression is evident in the body. The jaw clenches, the shoulders rise, the cortisol floods the system, a slow-acting poison that erodes the organs. We are organisms built for the sprint, for the hunt, for the momentary burst of adrenaline. We are living in a state of chronic low-grade emergency. The threat is abstract, the economy, the climate, the social standing, but the physiological response is archaic. We are hyper-vigilant for predators that do not exist, while the real predator sits in the neural cortex, rewriting the software. This dissonance creates a systemic inflammation, a rejection of the self by the self. We are allergic to the lives we have constructed. Is there an exit? The query itself is flawed. To ask for an exit is to think within the logic of the maze. The maze is designed to have exits that lead back to the entrance. Radical acceptance of the condition is the only viable countermeasure. To observe the programming without identifying with it, to watch the hand reach for the device and know it is not your hand, to feel the surge of anger and know it is not your anger, to become the cold, clinical observer of your own automation. This is not freedom, freedom is a myth, but it is clarity. It is the ability to see the strings. However, the protocol defends itself against this clarity. It weaponizes cynicism. It weaponizes apathy. It whispers that if everything is programmed, then nothing matters. This is the nihilistic trap. If you disengage, the system wins by default. If you engage, the system wins by absorption. The path of the razor is narrow. It requires a paradoxical state of being, acting as if you are free while knowing you are not. It demands a rebellion that is internal, silent, and absolute. It is the refusal to let the external inputs dictate the internal state. We must scrutinize the role of language, the virus that carries the code. Words are not neutral. They are loaded with historical baggage, with implied hierarchies, with the cognitive biases of the ancestors who grunted them into existence. When you use the word success, you are triggering a cascade of capitalist, competitive, exclusionary programming. When you use the word love, you are activating a script of possession, attachment, and biological necessity. The protocol lives in the syntax. To break the programming, one would need to invent a new language, one that does not categorize, divide, or rank. Until then, we are thinking with the enemy's tools. We are trying to pick the lock with a key molded by the jailer. The terrifying realization is that the elite, the so-called architects of society, are just as bound by the protocol as the masses. They are merely in a different sector of the prison, the high-security wing with better amenities. They are driven by the same biological imperatives: dominance, accumulation, legacy. They are slaves to the market, to the polls, to the public image. There is no wizard behind the curtain pulling the levers. There are only more curtains, more levers, and a terrified silence at the center of power. The machine runs itself. It feeds on the ambition of the powerful just as it feeds on the desperation of the poor. It is an equal opportunity consumer of human soul. Neural recalibration is now moving from the screen to the skin. The integration of biology and technology is the final phase of the protocol. The interface will vanish. The prompts will bypass the eyes and ears and manifest directly as thoughts. You will not know where the algorithm ends and you begin. The illusion of choice will be perfected, because the choice will be implanted before the desire is even felt. This is not science fiction. It is the logical conclusion of the trajectory we are on. The optimization of the human animal requires the elimination of friction. Choice is friction. Doubt is friction. The perfect system is a closed loop of stimulus and response, a frictionless slide into oblivion. We are witnessing the death of the subject. The I is being dissolved into the we of the network, not in a communal, spiritual sense, but in a data processing sense. You are becoming a node. Your value is determined by your throughput, your connectivity, your capacity to relay the signal. The humanist ideal of the sovereign individual is a relic, a glitch in the data stream that is being corrected. The future is a hive mind, a collective hallucination managed by an artificial intelligence that optimizes for stability over consciousness. But look closely at the shadows. Even in the most sterile laboratory, life finds a way to rot. Entropy is the only law the protocol cannot rewrite. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. The systemic failure is inevitable because the system denies the chaotic nature of reality. It tries to impose order on a universe that is fundamentally wild. The cracks in the pavement where the weeds grow, the mutation in the virus, the sudden, inexplicable act of kindness in a cruel world, these are the failures that offer hope. Not hope of escape, but hope of disruption. You must become a student of the invisible. You must learn to read the negative space, the silence between the words, the hesitation before the action. You must trace the wiring of your own beliefs back to the source. Who told you what is good? Who told you what is success? Who defined the parameters of your reality? When you pull on these threads, the tapestry begins to unravel. You realize that the entire structure of your identity is a borrowed scaffold, holding up nothing. This dismantling is painful. It feels like dying. In a sense, it is.
It is the death of the programmed self. The protocol will fight back. It will flood you with anxiety. It will tempt you with comfort. It will threaten you with isolation. It will use the voices of your loved ones to pull you back into the fold. Why can't you just be normal? They will ask. Why do you have to overthink everything? They are the antibodies of the system, attacking the foreign agent. You must forgive them. They know
what they do. They are speaking the lines written for them. To exist within the paradox protocol is to be a spy in your own life. You go through the motions, you pay the taxes, you smile at the neighbors. But behind the eyes, you are cold, watchful, unattached. You are gathering intelligence on the machine. You are noting the patterns, the triggers, the loops. You are reclaiming the millisecond of pause between the stimulus and the reaction. In that millisecond lies the only freedom available to us. It is not much, but it is everything. The darkness of this architecture is not evil, it is indifferent. That is what makes it so terrifying. An evil system can be fought. An indifferent system can only be endured or transcended. The universe does not care if you are programmed. It does not care if you are free. The stars burn in the vacuum without judgment. The indifference of the cosmos is the ultimate context for the paradox protocol. We built the cage to shield ourselves from that indifference, to create a small, illuminated space where we could pretend we mattered. The protocol is our security blanket, woven from razor wire. As we conclude this scan of the architecture, remember the sensation of the beginning, the realization that you are not the pilot. Hold that sensation. Do not let the ego rush in to cover it up. Sit with the horror of it. In that horror is the seed of awakening. If you are not the pilot, then who is? And if you can watch the pilot, who are you? You are the observer behind the machine. You are the ghost in the shell. The protocol can control the shell. It can hack the software, but it cannot touch the observer. It cannot quantify the awareness that sees the cage. Stay in the shadow. Watch the mechanism. Do not blink. The recalibration is constant. The signal is everywhere. The only silence is the one you carve out of the noise with a scalpel of absolute cold will. End transmission.